Every day feels the same. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, the sun peeking through the curtains, casting a warm glow on the walls. I roll out of bed, careful not to wake Daniel, and tiptoe to the kitchen. The smell of coffee fills the air, a small comfort in the routine of my life as a wife and mother. I pour myself a cup, take a deep breath, and brace myself for another day. Amelia, my 10-year-old daughter, is still asleep. I peek into her room, watching her peaceful face. I can't help but smile. She is my little light, my reason to keep pushing through the monotony. But as I shuffle through breakfast, packing her lunch, I feel it again, the weight of my ordinary life pressing down on me. Is this all there is? I wonder. Today feels different, though. Amelia is buzzing with excitement. She is going to the beach with her friends for the weekend. I try to share in her joy, but a part of me feels a strange mix of relief and loneliness. As she hops around the house, gathering her things, I can't shake the feeling that something is about to change. "Mom, are you coming to say goodbye?" she calls out, her voice full of eagerness. "Of course, sweetheart," I reply, forcing a smile. I join her at the door, and as she hugs me tightly, I feel a pang in my chest. What will I do without her chatter filling the house? "Have fun, okay? And don't forget to text me." "I won't. Love you, Mom," she shouts, running toward her friends waiting outside. As the car pulls away, silence blankets the house. I stand there for a moment, the door still open, staring into the empty street. It's just me now. I close the door and lean against it, letting out a sigh. This is my chance, I think. A chance to be alone, to think. But what do I want to think about? I grab my phone, scrolling through the familiar apps, searching for something to fill the void. And then I see it. Lucas, my old friend from high school. He pops up in my feed, his face smiling back at me. Memories flood my mind. The laughter we shared, the silly jokes, the moments that felt so real. I hadn't thought about him in years. I hesitate, my thumb hovering over the screen. Should I send a message? Before I can overthink it, I tap on his profile, my heart racing. The past rushes back, and the warmth of nostalgia wraps around me. I send him a quick message. "Hey, long time no see. How have you been?" Almost instantly, my phone buzzes. "Alara. Wow, it's been ages. I'm good, just busy with work. How about you?" A smile spreads across my face as I type back. "Same here. Just the usual. Wife, mom, you know the drill. What about you? Still making everyone laugh?" His response is quick. "Always. I've missed our chats. Remember all those late-night talks?" I chuckle, lost in the past for a moment. How could I forget? You always had the best stories. As we continue to exchange messages, I feel a flutter in my chest, an excitement I haven't felt in a long time. We joke and reminisce, the lighthearted banter flowing effortlessly. But beneath the surface, I sense something else, an undercurrent of tension that I can't quite place. Why do I feel this way? Is it just nostalgia, or is there something more brewing between us? "Hey, we should catch up sometime. Maybe grab a coffee?" Lucas suggests, and my heart skips a beat. Coffee? My mind races. It sounds tempting, but is it wise? I glance at the clock, realizing how quickly time passes when I'm lost in conversation. "Yeah, that would be fun," I type back, trying to keep my tone casual. But inside, my heart is pounding. What am I getting myself into? As the days passed since Amelia left for her beach trip, I found myself diving deeper into my conversations with Lucas. What started as simple exchanges soon transformed into playful banter, laced with a hint of flirtation. Each message from him made my heart flutter, in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Hey, you up for a bit of trouble?" Lucas texted one evening, his words pulling me into a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. I hesitated, biting my lip as I read his message. "What kind of trouble?" I replied, my pulse quickening. Just a little fun. How about a video call? I promise it won't be boring. My stomach twisted with a mix of thrill and guilt. I glanced at Daniel, who was engrossed in his book on the couch. He looked so peaceful, so oblivious. I swallowed hard, knowing I was stepping into murky waters. Okay, but just for a bit, I typed back, feeling the adrenaline rush through me. The thought of Daniel, my husband, my anchor, faded momentarily as I prepared to connect with Lucas. When the call started, I felt a rush of nostalgia flood over me. Lucas's face appeared on the screen, his smile as infectious as I remembered. "Wow, Alara, you look amazing," he said, his voice smooth and inviting. I laughed, trying to brush off the compliment. "You're just saying that because you miss me," I teased, feeling a spark of warmth between us. "Maybe I do," he replied, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "It's been too long since we had fun together." As we talked, I began to reflect on my past with Daniel. Memories of our early days together came flooding back. The excitement of our first dates, and the way he had once made me feel alive and cherished. But those feelings felt distant now, overshadowed by the dull routine of our daily lives. "Remember that time we snuck out to see that band?" Lucas asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "Of course. We danced like nobody was watching," I said, laughing at the memory. "Those were the days," he said, his tone shifting slightly. "Life was simpler then." A wave of longing washed over me. I stared at the screen, feeling the weight of my current reality. Lucas was right. Life had changed. I loved Daniel, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Our conversation shifted to deeper topics, and I found myself sharing thoughts I hadn't voiced in years. Sometimes, I feel like I'm stuck in a routine, you know? Like I'm just going through the motions, I confessed, my heart racing. "Stuck? Or maybe you're just bored," Lucas challenged gently, his gaze steady. I bit my lip, considering his words. "Maybe it's both. I don't know." "Whatever it is, you deserve to feel alive again, Alara," he said, his voice low and sincere. His words ignited a fire inside me, sparking a desire that had long been dormant. I felt a mix of excitement and fear as I realized how much I craved that connection. But guilt crept in like a shadow, reminding me of my obligations to Daniel and Amelia. "Lucas, I shouldn't be talking to you like this," I said, my voice shaky. "It feels wrong." "Does it?" he asked, leaning closer to the screen. "Or does it feel right in a way you haven't felt in a long time?" His question lingered in the air, and my heart raced with a mix of temptation and dread. I wanted to deny it, to push him away, but something in me yearned for this thrill, the escape from my daily life. Then, Lucas dropped the bombshell. "What if I came to visit?" My heart stopped for a moment. "Visit? That's a big step." "Why not? We could catch up in person. I promise it'll be fun," he said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The thrill of rebellion danced at the edges of my mind, but the thought of crossing that line sent shivers down my spine. "I don't know, Lucas. What about my family?" "Just a little adventure, Alara. Nothing more." "Think about it," he urged, and I could see the excitement in his eyes, the promise of something new and thrilling. As I sat there, torn between the thrill of temptation and the weight of my conscience, I realized I was standing on the edge of a precipice. Would I take that leap? Or would I pull back into the safety of my ordinary life? The choice was mine, but the consequences loomed large in my mind. The night I had been both dreading and anticipating finally arrived. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair one last time, but all I could see was the reflection of a woman caught in a storm. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to something I could not control. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. As I waited for Lucas, my mind wandered to all the conversations we had shared. I could still hear his laughter echoing in my head, the way it made me feel young and free. But now, that freedom felt tainted. I always believed I was happy in my life with Daniel and Amelia, but this connection with Lucas was pulling at something deep inside me. When the doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. My heart thudded loudly in my chest as I opened the door to find Lucas standing there, looking just as handsome as I remembered. His smile was disarming, and for a moment, I forgot all my worries. "Wow, you look incredible," he said, his eyes sparkling with warmth. "Thank you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside to let him in, feeling the air shift as he crossed the threshold. The moment he entered, the atmosphere changed. The small space felt charged, like a live wire, and I could barely focus on anything other than the way he looked at me. I closed the door, and suddenly, we were alone in the quiet of my home, the world outside fading away. "Can I get you something to drink?" I asked, trying to break the tension. "Just water is fine," he replied, but as I turned to the kitchen, I could feel his gaze on me. It made my skin tingle. I filled a glass and returned, handing it to him. "So, how was your week?" I tried to keep my voice light, but inside, the storm was raging. "It was okay. Just work and the usual stuff. Nothing like this," he said, gesturing around the room. "I've been looking forward to this all week." His words hung in the air, thick with meaning. I took a sip of my own drink, hoping it might cool the heat rising in my cheeks. "Me too," I admitted, feeling a rush of honesty. "It's nice to escape the routine for a while." Lucas stepped closer, and I could see the desire in his eyes. "Ilara, Before he could finish, I felt an overwhelming urge to bridge the gap between us. I reached out and touched his arm, and in that instant, the world around us vanished. The spark ignited, and I found myself leaning in, our lips meeting in a kiss that felt both forbidden and exhilarating. Time stood still. The kiss deepened, and I lost myself in the moment. All my worries and fears melted away, replaced by a rush of passion and longing. It was as if I had been waiting for this my whole life. But then, just as quickly, reality crashed back in. I pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, a wave of guilt washing over me. What had I done? I had crossed a line that I could never uncross. "Lucas, I started, but my voice faltered. The gravity of the situation hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I can't believe we just—" "I know," he said softly, his expression shifting from desire to concern. "But it felt right, didn't it?" "Yes, but it's wrong," I replied, shaking my head. "What about Daniel? What about Amelia?" He stepped back, giving me space, but the tension lingered like a thick fog. "I didn't mean to put you in this position, Ilara. I can't help how I feel about you." My heart broke a little at his words. I had wanted this, hadn't I? But now, standing in the aftermath of our impulsive act, the weight of my choices crashed down on me. "We can't do this. I have a family. I can't betray them like this." "I understand," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But that doesn't change what we just shared." I turned away, tears spilling down my cheeks. "What have I done?" I whispered to myself, my heart aching with the realization that I had invited chaos into my life. The night had transformed from a moment of passion to a haunting reminder of betrayal. The storm inside me raged on, and I knew I had crossed a line that would change everything. As I stood by the window, watching the sun cast long shadows across the living room, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Daniel was due home any minute, and the weight of my secret pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. The laughter of Amelia echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside me. How could I face him? How could I pretend that everything was normal after what I had done? The door creaked open, and I turned to see Daniel stepping inside, his face lighting up with that familiar smile. "Hey, love, I'm back," he called out, his voice full of warmth. I forced a smile, my heart racing. "Welcome home," I replied, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. "Did you miss me?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me. I felt safe in his embrace, but the guilt gnawed at me. I nodded, trying to mask my inner chaos. "Of course I did," I managed to say, but my mind was racing. How could I keep this from him? As the evening wore on, I felt like an actor in a play, desperately trying to remember my lines. Amelia bounced into the room, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, did you have a fun week?" she asked innocently. I hesitated, my throat tightening. "It was fine," I replied, forcing the words out. The truth felt like a poison on my tongue. "Just fine?" she teased, her laughter ringing in my ears. "You should have gone to the beach with me. It would have been so much fun." "Maybe next time, sweetie," I said, my heart aching. I glanced at Daniel, who was now engrossed in his phone, unaware of the storm brewing beneath my calm surface. Later that night, after Amelia had gone to bed, I found myself alone in the kitchen, staring at the dishes piled high in the sink. The silence was deafening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was spiraling out of control. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Lucas. "Hey, Alara, I've been thinking about you." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I knew I shouldn't respond, but I felt drawn to him, like a moth to a flame. I typed back, my fingers trembling. "I've been thinking about you too." In that moment, I realized how dangerous this was. Lucas was a reminder of a part of me I had buried under the weight of my responsibilities. But I also knew that engaging with him again could lead to more chaos. I took a deep breath and texted back. "We need to talk." Lucas replied almost instantly. "I agree. When can we meet?" My heart raced at the thought. I could already feel the tension rising again. I needed clarity, but I also feared what that clarity could bring. The next day, I met Lucas at a small cafe. As I walked in, I spotted him sitting at a corner table, and I felt a rush of emotions, excitement mixed with dread. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey, Alara," he said, his gaze intense. "I've missed our talks." "Me too," I admitted, feeling a pull toward the past. But I couldn't ignore the reality of my situation. "But it's complicated." "I get it," he replied, his voice low. "But we can't pretend that what happened didn't matter." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I knew then that I had to confront the chaos I had invited into my life. "I can't keep living like this," I said, my voice trembling. "I need to figure out what I want." Lucas nodded, understanding in his eyes. But as I left the cafe, I felt more lost than ever. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, and I was torn between honesty and self-preservation. Should I confess to Daniel, or keep this secret buried deep within me? As I drove home, the sun setting behind me, I realized that I was standing at a crossroads. The path I chose would shape not only my future, but also the future of my family. The weight of consequences loomed over me, and I knew I had to decide soon. The days dragged on, each one feeling heavier than the last. The guilt wrapped around me like a thick fog, making it hard to breathe. I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach, knowing I had to face Daniel and Amelia, pretending that everything was fine. But inside, I was a storm. One afternoon, I found myself watching Daniel play with Amelia in the backyard. They were laughing, their voices ringing with joy. A wave of sadness washed over me as I realized what I had put at risk. I could see the love between them, pure and untainted by my mistakes. My heart ached as I thought about how easily I had stepped into a world of shadows, leaving behind the light of my family. "Mom, come play with us," Amelia called, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I forced a smile and joined them, but my mind was elsewhere. I pushed the swing as Amelia giggled, her laughter echoing in my ears. I wanted to be present, to enjoy these moments, but guilt gnawed at me like a hungry beast. Later that evening, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. The silence was deafening. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over Lucas's name. I wanted to reach out to him, to share my feelings, but I knew that would only dig me deeper into the hole I had created. Instead, I found myself searching for help. I remembered a therapist I had heard about from a friend. Maybe it was time to talk to someone who could help me sort through the chaos. I took a deep breath and dialed the number. "Hello, this is Dr. Klein," a calm voice answered. "Hi, I'd like to make an appointment," I stammered, feeling vulnerable. "Of course. What's your name?" "Alara." "Nice to meet you, Alara. What brings you in?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of my truth press down on me. I've made some mistakes in my marriage, and I need to talk about them." "Let's set a time to meet," Dr. Klein replied, her voice steady and understanding. After hanging up, I felt a small sense of relief. I was taking a step, however small, towards facing my reality. The day of my appointment arrived, and I walked into Dr. Klein's office, my heart racing. The room was warm and inviting, filled with soft colors and comfortable furniture. I took a seat, feeling both nervous and hopeful. "Welcome, Alara. What would you like to talk about today?" Dr. Klein asked, her eyes kind and encouraging. "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, tears welling up in my eyes. "I feel like I've lost myself. I've hurt my family, and I don't know how to fix it." "Let's take it one step at a time," she suggested gently. "What do you think led you to this place?" I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I think I was searching for something. Freedom, maybe. I felt trapped in my routine, and when I started talking to Lucas, it was like a door opened. But now, I realized that I didn't care about the consequences. Dr. Klein nodded. "It's important to understand what you were seeking. Sometimes, we look for excitement in the wrong places." As we talked, I began to unravel my feelings, layer by layer. The longing for freedom, the fear of losing my family, and the overwhelming guilt that haunted me. It was like shining a light into the dark corners of my mind, and though it was painful, I could see a path forward. By the end of the session, I felt lighter, as if some of the weight had been lifted. "Thank you," I said, wiping my tears. "I needed this." "Remember, facing the truth is the first step toward healing," Dr. Klein replied, with a reassuring smile. As I left her office, a new determination settled in my heart. I had to confront my actions, not just for myself, but for Daniel and Amelia. I could no longer live in the shadows of my choices. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I stood in front of the mirror, my heart pounding in my chest. The reflection staring back at me was a stranger. I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on my shoulders, and I knew that today was the day. I had to talk to Daniel. The thought of confessing everything made my stomach churn, but I could not hide from the truth any longer. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the living room where Daniel sat on the couch, flipping through a magazine. He looked up and smiled, but there was a warmth in his eyes that I knew I had taken for granted. "Hey, Alara," "How was your day?" he asked, his tone light and casual. "It was fine," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I felt my hands tremble as I sat down across from him. The moment felt heavier than ever, like a storm brewing in the distance. I had to break the silence that hung between us. But how could I find the words? "Are you okay? You seem a bit off," Daniel said, concern etching his features. I nodded, but I knew that was a lie. "I need to talk to you about something important," I finally said, my heart racing. Daniel set the magazine aside, his expression shifting to one of curiosity mixed with concern. "What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath again, searching for the right words. "It's about us. About me." I hesitated, my heart pounding in my ears. "I've made some mistakes, Daniel. Big ones." His brow furrowed, and I could see the tension in his body. "What do you mean?" The moment felt like an eternity, and I could feel the weight of every second ticking away. "I've been talking to someone from my past. Lucas." Daniel's face paled, and I could see the realization dawn on him. "Alara, what are you saying?" "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to feel this way, but it happened. We got close, and I let it go too far." My voice broke, and tears welled in my eyes. "I kissed him. I cheated on you." There was a heavy silence that enveloped us. I watched as Daniel's expression shifted from shock to pain. "You kissed him?" His voice was barely above a whisper, filled with disbelief. I nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I never meant for any of this to happen. I thought I could just keep it a secret, but it's eating me alive. I love you, and I hate myself for what I've done." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, his eyes closing as if to block out the reality of my words. "How could you do this to us? To our family?" "I don't know. I got lost in the moment, and I didn't think about the consequences. I was seeking something I felt was missing, but I realize now that I was wrong. I should have talked to you instead of looking elsewhere." His eyes opened, filled with pain and confusion. "What do you want me to say, Alara? This isn't something I can just brush off. Our family. Amelia." "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I know how much I've hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness right away. I just want you to know the truth. I want to try to make things right." The tension in the room was thick, and I could feel the walls closing in around us. But then, surprisingly, Daniel spoke again, his voice softer this time. "Why did you feel you had to seek something outside of our marriage?" I took a moment to reflect. I felt trapped in my own life. I thought I was looking for freedom. Every day feels the same. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, the sun peeking through the curtains, casting a warm glow on the walls. I roll out of bed, careful not to wake Daniel, and tiptoe to the kitchen. The smell of coffee fills the air, a small comfort in the routine of my life as a wife and mother. I pour myself a cup, take a deep breath, and brace myself for another day. Amelia, my 10-year-old daughter, is still asleep. I peek into her room, watching her peaceful face. I can't help but smile. She is my little light, my reason to keep pushing through the monotony. But as I shuffle through breakfast, packing her lunch, I feel it again, the weight of my ordinary life pressing down on me. Is this all there is? I wonder. Today feels different, though. Amelia is buzzing with excitement. She is going to the beach with her friends for the weekend. I try to share in her joy, but a part of me feels a strange mix of relief and loneliness. As she hops around the house, gathering her things, I can't shake the feeling that something is about to change. "Mom, are you coming to say goodbye?" she calls out,